The knock came just after midnight, sharp and desperate, slicing through the quiet of a small house that had learned how to survive on silence. For a moment, the single dad froze in the narrow hallway, his heart pounding as if the past itself had reached out and found his address. He already knew who it was before he touched the door, because some footsteps never leave you, no matter how hard you try to move on. Before the story pulls you any deeper, take a second right now. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength it takes to rebuild a life after heartbreak, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this exist because of people like you. When he finally opened the door, the woman standing there looked nothing like the version of her that had walked out years ago. Back then, she had left with confidence, perfume lingering in the air, eyes already fixed on a future that did not include him or their child. Now she stood smaller somehow, shoulders slumped, makeup smudged, clutching her coat as if it were the last thing holding her upright. The affair that had promised her excitement, wealth, and escape had collapsed, and she had nowhere left to land except the life she once abandoned. The single dad did not invite her in right away. He stood there, barefoot on the cold floor, the weight of memory pressing against his chest. This was the woman who had once shared his dreams, then shattered them without looking back. This was also the mother of his child, the person whose absence had echoed through every bedtime, every school event, every quiet night when exhaustion felt heavier than loneliness. Years earlier, when she had left, the world had not paused to give him time to process it. Bills still arrived, work still demanded his energy, and a small child still needed breakfast, reassurance, and a sense of safety. He had learned quickly that grief does not excuse responsibility. So he learned to cook with one hand while tying shoelaces with the other. He learned to sleep lightly, listening for nightmares. He learned to smile at parent-teacher meetings while feeling like he was held together with tape and stubbornness. At first, people had pitied him. Some had whispered that a man could not raise a child alone without something breaking. Others had waited for him to fail, to come crawling back to his ex, or to crumble under the pressure. But failure never came. What came instead were small victories that no one applauded. Clean laundry folded late at night, homework checked after long shifts, a fridge that was never full but never empty either. Slowly, quietly, he built a life that did not depend on anyone else staying. His child became the center of his universe, not in a dramatic way, but in the steady rhythm of shared mornings and tired evenings. They laughed over burnt pancakes. They cried together during movies. They learned each other's moods and needs without words. In that space, the single dad found something he had not expected after betrayal: peace. Meanwhile, his ex-wife chased the life she thought she deserved. The affair partner had promised her freedom and excitement, painting the single dad as dull and holding her back. For a while, it seemed like she had won. Social media showed vacations, expensive dinners, smiling faces framed by luxury. From the outside, it looked like she had traded a hard life for an easy one. But appearances have a way of lying. The man she left for was not built for loyalty. What began as passion turned into control, then neglect. The love that once felt intoxicating became conditional and cold. Promises were broken. Money came with strings attached. Slowly, the fantasy cracked, and when it finally shattered, it did so without mercy. She found herself alone, older, and suddenly aware of everything she had given up. That realization is what brought her to the door at midnight. When the single dad eventually stepped aside and let her in, it was not out of weakness or longing, it was out of basic human decency. He offered her water, not comfort, a chair, not an embrace. The house was modest but warm, filled with signs of a life lived honestly. Family photos on the wall showed a child growing taller, happier, steadier. The absence of her presence was obvious, and so was the proof that they had survived without her. She tried to explain herself. Her words spilled out fast and tangled, full of regret and excuses. She spoke about mistakes, about being lost, about realizing too late what she had thrown away. She spoke about wanting to come home, about fixing things, about starting over. The single dad listened quietly, his face calm, but inside him memories rose like ghosts. The night she packed her bags without tears. The months when she did not call. The birthdays she missed. The times he had held their child while they cried for a mother who was choosing someone else. This was the real challenge, the one no one prepares you for. Not surviving alone, but deciding what to do when the person who broke you asks for shelter from the storm they chose. For a brief moment, doubt crept in. He wondered if forgiveness meant reopening the door fully. He wondered if denying her request would make him cruel. He wondered what example he was setting for his child by standing firm instead of offering reunion. But then he looked around the room and saw the truth of his life. He saw stability earned the hard way. He saw self-respect rebuilt piece by piece. He saw a home defined not by who was missing, but by who had stayed. What he did next stopped her cold. He told her, calmly and without anger, that he forgave her, not in a dramatic way, not as a grand gesture, but as a personal choice. He explained that carrying resentment had weighed him down, and he had let it go long ago, but forgiveness, he made clear, did not mean restoration. It did not mean erasing consequences or pretending the past had not happened. He told her that the life she left no longer existed. In its place stood something new, something built on boundaries and hard lessons. He told her she was welcome to be part of their child's life in a healthy, responsible way, because their child deserved that chance. But he also told her she could not come back as his partner. That chapter had closed, not out of spite, but out of growth. She had expected anger or desperation. She had prepared herself for guilt-tripping or emotional bargaining. What she had not expected was clarity. The realization hit her all at once. She had not returned to a broken man waiting to be saved. She had returned to someone who had saved himself. Tears followed, but they were different now. They were not tears that asked for rescue, but tears that acknowledged loss, the loss of a family she once had, the loss of a man who had loved her deeply and then learned how to love himself more. Over the following weeks, change began to take shape. Not the kind that makes headlines, but the kind that heals slowly. She started therapy. She found work that paid less but demanded honesty. She showed up consistently for their child, not with grand gifts, but with presence, school pickups, shared meals, quiet apologies that did not expect immediate forgiveness. The single dad watched carefully. He did not rush trust. He did not rewrite history. He allowed space for improvement without surrendering the boundaries that had protected his peace. And something remarkable happened. Their child, who had once carried confusion and hurt, began to soften. The tension in their shoulders eased. Laughter came easier. The household felt lighter, not because the past was fixed, but because the present was handled with care. For the single dad, inspiration came not from reunion, but from self-respect. He realized that strength was not about proving anything to his ex, or to the world. It was about choosing what aligned with the life he had built. It was about teaching his child that love does not require self-betrayal. Near the end of one quiet evening, after his ex had left following a shared dinner with their child, the single dad stood alone in the kitchen. The house was peaceful. He felt tired, but grounded. For the first time, he understood that closure does not always look like walking away forever, nor does it look like letting someone back in completely. Sometimes it looks like standing still and saying, "This is as far as you can come." If this story has touched your heart so far, if it has reminded you of your own struggles, sacrifices, or quiet victories, please take a moment to like this video and share it. Your engagement helps stories like this reach people who desperately need them. The ex-wife never stopped regretting her choices, but she learned to live with them. Over time, respect replaced entitlement. Gratitude replaced expectation. She saw firsthand the man her ex-husband had become, and instead of trying to reclaim him, she learned to honor him from a distance. Years later, when people asked the single dad how he managed to stay strong through betrayal and temptation, he never gave a dramatic answer. He simply said he chose peace over familiarity and growth over fear. That choice changed everything. Before this story ends, there's one special request. Please comment below with your thoughts or your own experiences. Your words might help someone else feel less alone. In the end, the story was never about an ex-wife coming back. It was about a single dad who refused to go backward once he had learned how to stand. It was about forgiveness without surrender, compassion without compromise, and the quiet power of knowing your worth. And for anyone watching who feels torn between the past and the future, let this be the reminder that you are allowed to choose the life you fought so hard to build.